as a way of focusing our actions on doing tshuva and strengthening the connection to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Because the bottom line here is that we need a Kadosh Baruch Hu now more than ever. Why Dafka today? So there is something called Yom Kippur Katan. Have any of you ever heard of Yom Kippur Katan? So what is Yom Kippur Katan? So generally Erev Rosh Chodesh, some people have a minhag to observe a day of fasting and slichos in order to enter the new month having done tshuva. That's called Yom Kippur Katan. So they fast, they say slichos. It's a whole. You can open up, you can look in a siddur for the davening for Yom Kippur Katan. When Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos or Sunday, right? When Rosh Chodesh falls out on Shabbos or Sunday, as Mar Cheshvan does, Rosh Chodesh is Sunday and Monday. So Erev Rosh Chodesh is Shabbos. You're not allowed to fast on Shabbos. Erev is Friday. You're not allowed to fast on Friday either. So when is the fast? So the fast is today. Now, except that there's no Yom Kippur Katan for Mar Cheshvan under normal circumstances. Why? Because you just had Yom Kippur. Right? Yom Kippur was a week and a half ago, so you just had Yom Kippur. So there's no need for a Yom Kippur Katan. So generally Yom Kippur Katan is not practiced now before Mar Cheshvan, but the Kol Koreh instituted it. Kol Koreh also said if you can't fast, Kol Koreh is a proclamation, declaration by rabbinic leaders. So that's what a Kol Koreh is. So the Kol Koreh says you're supposed to say Avinu Malkeinu. Many shuls are saying Avinu Malkeinu. We're saying Avinu Malkeinu. We're going to say it even on Shabbos. We're going to say it even on Rosh Chodesh. Things that normally are not done. We're saying Avinu Malkeinu, Shacharis and Mincha. To add extra tehillim to the davening, and then about fasting as well. But an interesting statement is that if a person can't fast, they should take on a tainis dibur. You know what a tainis dibur is? It's a fast of speech. In other words, you should not talk. Not talk. Why not talk? Because of how many things we say wrong when we talk normally, even when we talk normally. So you can't say to a person, "Don't talk lashon hara." You just say, "Don't talk." Okay. Anyway, let's get back to our topic.
I just wanted to say one thing quickly.
Yes,
yesterday,
Rose.
Michal Horowitz said in the I don't remember where. I think it was Bamidbar actually, because I knew you were doing about. So there was the word with God, and it said Vateshvu Po, and she kind of twisted it to say V'tashuvu Peh. And she was discussing Rechilut and that love. She kind of, tweaked it. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so let's go. So we're on page 906. It's good to have you all back. We're on page 906. And as you might or might not remember, Bnei Yisrael have returned from battle against Midian. They went out to battle Midian as a divinely sanctioned act of revenge for what Midian had done to Bnei Yisrael. Talk about contemporary themes, right? Divinely sanctioned revenge for what Midian had done to Bnei Yisrael. And now they've come back with the spoils, right? Interestingly, if you think about it, think about what we learned at the end of last year, that Bnei Yisrael brought back others, right? They didn't just bring back the spoils, they brought back people. And what were they told? Go kill them, right? They were told to go kill them. In war, the Sefer HaChinuch writes this, the Minchas Chinuch writes this, that in war, there's no such thing as pikuach nefesh. In other words, in war, everybody is in danger, right? Combatants and non-combatants, they're all in danger at a time of war. Okay, so they come back with this booty from Midian. Among the booty are utensils to be used in food preparation. And Bnei Yisrael were instructed by Moshe what they need to do to remove tumas mace, which we spoke about, from the things they brought back. They were tameh because they had come in contact with people who had died or been killed. They were tameh, and the things that they touched or other items in different circumstances became tameh as well. And Moshe Rabbeinu gave them the laws of what to do to remove that tumas mace from themselves and from these kalim as well. But what Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do was tell them the laws of Gi'ule Kalim. What are Gi'ule Kalim? Gi'ule Kalim are the laws of removing non-kosher essence or tam from Kalim. Who had to come along and tell them that? Elazar. Elazar had to come along, who was serving as the Kohen Gadol this time. He had to come along and he had to tell them that. So let's look in the Parsha, page 906. What does it say? Vayomer Elazar HaKohen El Anshe HaTzava HaBaim LaMilchama. We're on page 906, verse 21. That Elazar, the Kohen, said to the soldiers who returning from war, Zos Chukas HaTorah Asher Tzivah Hashem Es Moshe. This is the law of the Torah that Hashem commanded Moshe.
You remember why you mentioned Elazar and not the Kohen?
And not Aharon. Aharon had died already. Aharon had died already.
Was the Kohen, right?
Elazar was one of Aharon's sons who took over as the Kohen Gadol. Elazar took over as the Kohen Gadol here. And we learned that maybe one of the reasons why Yoshua never needed Elazar was because Elazar jumped in here, and maybe he shouldn't have. Okay. So what does Elazar say? Pasuk Chaf Beis 22. Ach es hazahav v'es hakosef es hanechoshes es habarzel es habedil v'es haofares. Right? These substances. What are these substances? Some you know. Right? Zahav is gold. Kesef is silver. Nechoshes is copper or brass. What's the difference between copper and brass? Copper is the more pure element. Brass is copper mixed with zinc. Why would you mix copper with zinc? You would mix copper with zinc to make it sturdier. Copper itself is a relatively pliable material. So you would mix it with zinc, with other items to make it more durable. There's another member of this family, which is bronze. Right? Copper is the pure element. Brass is copper mixed with zinc, and bronze is copper mixed with tin. Okay? So these are the elements here. So nechoshes, in its general sense, is copper or brass. Es ha-barzel, what's barzel? Iron, right? You can write the English is here. Es ha-barzel is iron. What is es ha-bedil?
It says lead.
Tin. Bedil is tin. Tin is a metal, right? Tin is a metal, right? Tin is a metal. V'es ha'ofaris. What's ofaris? Ofaris is lead, right? The word ofaris we know from the Shiras Hayam, right? Where they sunk like ofaris into the sea. So these are the metals. Okay, these are the metals. Okay, very nice. These are the metals to kasher. Guess what? Are there other things that we might call into question? What is left out of this list? What is obviously left out of this list?
Because you can't kosher clay.
Cheres. What's called cheres? What is cheres? Cheres we define as pottery. One of the oldest substances that was used for making cooking and eating utensils was pottery. Now, pottery is this generic kind of term. And what is pottery? Pottery is an item which is made out of clay and water. And when you make it out of clay and water, it is very malleable. but then it is hardened by being put into what we today call a kiln, or into some kind of fire, even like a bonfire, right? Some kind of fire. The clay, when exposed, the clay and the water, when exposed to fire, hardens. Now, and this is the basis for ceramics. They're all the same. This is all the same family, right? Basically, ceramics and clay pottery are all the same thing. There are different kinds of ceramic. So when you think about it, so one kind of ceramic that we think about are what we call terracotta. Terracotta is a kind of ceramic, a kind of pottery. What is terracotta? Terracotta is clay that's heated but not to a very high temperature. What is generally made from terracotta? What are we most familiar with? Made from terracotta?
Floors.
Right. So the terracotta that's in floors and the terracotta that's in floors and terracotta that's in roofs are generally hardened more than the regular terracotta. Flower pots. Right? Flower pots are terracotta. If you take a flower pot and you drop it on the ground on something hard, what's going to happen? It's going to break. It's going to break. You take a terracotta floor tile and you drop it, it's going to break. Well, most floor tiles probably will break. All right. So terracotta is a kind of ceramic or pottery. Then you go, if you use a different kind of clay and you fire it at an even higher temperature, it becomes earthenware. Right. And we're all familiar with earthenware, which is actually used in pottery, used in dishes and cooking. You can get earthenware. Earthenware is primarily used in design, like vases and things like that, but it can be used for plates and things like that. Earthenware, and then if you heat it up even more, you ultimately get porcelain, right? Porcelain, if you heat it up even more, you ultimately get porcelain. What is China? What is China? China is a kind of porcelain. All of these things are not allowed to be koshered. Why are they not allowed to be? They're obviously missing, right? Everybody used clay cheres in those days. Everybody used pottery, or however they, whatever status it was in. Everybody used it in those days. So if they used it in those days, why is it not mentioned here? If they used it in those days, because it can't be koshered. What happened?
Porous, because it's porous.
Oh, so the question is, why can't it be koshered? So some say it can't be koshered because in its pristine state, it is porous. Well, if it's porous, so if it's going to absorb something, what is it going to do? It's going to easily give it up as well. So it seems to be a little bit of a gezeras hakasuv, right? A law that defies rational explanation as to why kli cheres cannot be koshered. Some say it's too porous to be koshered, meaning that there's no way to control what gets absorbed and expunged from it. Whereas when it comes to metal, something gets absorbed, you can expunge that which is in there. When it comes to clay cheres, it's so porous that it's impossible to control the absorption and expunging of whatever has been absorbed into the clay cheres. So that's why we don't kosher pottery. What did they do in those days if clay cheres became treifed? If you used it for something that wasn't kosher, what was the solution? Not throw it away, break it up, smash it, destroy it, and then remake it. Right? You destroy it, you break it up into pieces, and then what do? And you refashion it. Right? You once again you reconstruct this kli, if you will. that was permitted there, but there was no way to kosher it. Okay. So that's why kli cheres is missing from this list, because even though kli cheres was something that was commonly used, since there was no way to kosher kli cheres, when Elazar tells Bnei Yisrael the things that they can kosher, he deliberately leaves out kli cheres. Okay, so now we have the following issue. What about if there was a substance that didn't exist back then, but exists today?
Plastic?
Can we kosher it, or can we not kosher it? Right? Can we kosher it, or can we not kosher it? Question number one. Question number two, where does glass fit into this list of materials? Right? Is glass something which is kosherable, or is glass something which is not kosherable? Meaning, is glass more akin to metal, or is glass more akin to kli cheres? So it's very interesting machlokes between Sfardim and Ashkenazim. What do Sfardim say? Sfardim say that glass is considered smooth, glass does not absorb, and if you follow the Shulchan Aruch, you follow Rav Yosef Karo, you follow Maran, right, Rav Yosef Karo, so you could use glass dishes for milchiks and for fleishiks, doing nothing more than simply washing the dish in between milchiks and fleishiks. Because it doesn't absorb, right? There's no problem of needing to kosher anything made of glass. Glass plates.
And that can go in a dishwasher?
And that
because
can,
there's meat and dairy dishwasher.
and if you're a Sephardi, you can put your glass plates in milchik dishwashers, in fleishik dishwashers, it doesn't matter, right? If you're a Sephardi, glass is gewaldig, right? It's amazing, okay? What about if you're an Ashkenazi? So the Shulchan Aruch, Rav Yosef Karo, Maran writes that glass is considered non-absorbent. Is that Rav Yosef Karo was Sephardi? Rav Yosef Karo was the mechaber. He's referred to as Maran. He is the one who paskins the halachos for the Sephardic world. Where there's a difference, the Ashkenazic difference will be noted by the Ramah, Rav Moshe Isserlis. What does the Ramah say here? The Ramah comes along and says that we're stringent when it comes to glass for Pesach. That's what the Ramah says. We're stringent when it comes to glass for Pesach.
And on Pesach it's okay?
So that's the question, all right? The Ramah says we're stringent when it comes to glass for Pesach. Does that mean, so basically what the Ramah says is that we can't kosher glass for Pesach. And when we say glass, I'm talking about something that's been used, glass that's been used for hot, right? Glass that's been used for cold. Everybody agrees you can kosher for Pesach. How do you kosher glass which has been used for cold for Pesach? How do you kosher it? You kosher it by soaking it and changing the water every 24 hours for 3 days. That's how you kosher cold glass for Pesach. Sephardim don't need to do that. Ashkenazim do that. But what?
Sorry to interrupt. So you're talking more of things like Pyrex?
No, not
that kind of glass.
but not even Pyrex. A glass plate. A glass plate.
All right.
Right? What about a glass plate?
Yeah.
Pyrex is glass, yes. Pyrex is heat-resistant glass. Most glass will shatter in heat, right? If you have hot temperature, it will shatter in heat. Pyrex won't shatter in heat. It's made specifically for, okay, but it's still glass. It's still glass. So glass which has been used for something hot, says the Ramah, cannot be koshered for Pesach. According to the Shulchan Aruch, according to the Mechaber, you can kosher glass which has been used for something hot for Pesach, but according to the Ramah, you can't. This is a reflection of the tension. What is glass more like metal, or is glass more like pottery?
But what do you follow?
So I'm an Ashkenazi, so I follow this Ramah. So what does that mean? So that means that I don't kosher glass. I don't consider glass to be able to be used for both milchiks and fleishiks, right? That's the idea here. I don't consider glass to be able to be used for milk. That glass is not absorbable. For Pesach, I do not endorse that, meaning that any glass which has been used with something hot, I will not use for Pesach. I could kosher pots and pans, which are made out of metal, but I can't kosher glass. That if glass has been used for something hot, I can't, there's no way for me to use that glass on Pesach.
Is this for soup or tea? What else do you
Soup, tea, you name it.
No, Pirates you bake. What about now?
Pirates you bake, but
Oh, so now the question, so here's the question now. So yes, tea, coffee, glass mugs that I use for coffee, glass mugs that I use for tea. I'm an Ashkenazi, I can't use those for Pesach. I'm a Sephardi, no problem. But I'm an Ashkenazi, I can't use those for Pesach, okay? Now, if I'm a Sephardi,
Doesn't have to do the soaking?
Sephardi, they don't do the soaking either.
Pesach?
They don't do the soaking.
I think they just wash in the dishwasher.
They don't do the soaking. They don't soak any glasses. They don't soak any glasses. They just wash it and use it. Okay?
And they eat rice. I think we should do that.
Yeah, but they also get up at 5 o'clock in the morning for the entire month of Elul. So there's a balance here, you know. You
No,
have to.
Rabbi, now they're allowed to do it later.
Okay, all right, whatever. Okay, so the Ramah says for Pesach we don't do this. Does the Ramah mean only for Pesach? Meaning during the rest of the year it's okay? Or does the Ramah mean no, you can't ever do this? That's a big debate among the poskim. And it's actually reflected in a difference in kashrus observance generationally. What does that mean? I'm going to tell you the following. All right, I'm going to tell you the following, okay? You might not want to eat in my house. I have one set of glasses. I have one set of glasses that I use for milchiks, and that I use for fleishiks, and that I wash in the milchik dishwasher, and that I wash in the fleishik dishwasher. I have one set of glasses. I don't have any glass plates, but I have one set of drinking glasses, okay? What do I rely on? I rely on the fact that the Ramah says by Pesach, you can't do it. I have completely separate drinking glasses for Pesach. But there are plenty of poskim who say the Ramah means that you can't do it for Pesach, but the rest of the year it's not a problem. Nearly every single one of my children has separate drinking glasses for milchiks and separate drinking glasses for fleishiks.
Wait, for hot too? You use it the same?
Yep. I put it in the dishwasher, hot water, right? Dishwasher is hot water. It's being washed with hot, but the position that I embrace says that glass does not absorb, and I can rely on that position during the year. I just can't rely on that position for Pesach.
Well, you just said the Ashkenazis don't accept that.
The Ramah, the Ashkenazis don't do it for Pesach. The Ramah says glass that has been used for hot cannot be used on Pesach. It can't be koshered and it can't be used on Pesach. But the Ramah just mentions Pesach. So the discussion among the Ashkenazi poskim is, did the Ramah mean just Pesach because that's all that he mentioned? Or did the Ramah mean, no, you can never do it and you certainly can't do it on Pesach? So I'm saying this debate about what was the Ramah's intention is actually manifest in a difference in generational practice. I think my generation were very comfortable using drinking glasses, predominantly used for cold things, for both milchiks and fleishiks, and washing them in the dishwasher, and embracing the position that glass doesn't absorb. Just like the Sfardim for the rest of the Sfardim say this for all of the year and Pesach. The Ashkenazim are now saying, according to the Ramah, we won't say it for Pesach, but for the rest of the year we'll rely on it. Which is why I have one set of drinking glasses. But my children have a set of drinking glasses for fleishiks and a set of drinking glasses for milchiks, and the two,
Separate the colors,
right?
Never mix up.
No, it is an indication of a more stringent observance. In other words, they embrace the position that says the Ramah said Pesach, but he meant even Pesach. He meant not even Pesach. Now, certainly during the year, but not even Pesach. So there are differences of opinion. Different poskim who say the Ramah meant X or the Ramah meant Y. So it's an interesting. You see here the difference between the two. So.
I just, that's a pet peeve of mine, because I just think it's an socioeconomic, a function of socioeconomic trend. So these kids have kitchens with 3 sinks, 2 dishwashers, 3 ovens, 2 microwaves. Who grew up like that? We
Yes.
didn't grow up like that. So
Correct. But we didn't grow up like that, so we had to learn how to kosher things. We had to learn how to use one oven, right? In other words, we had one oven. I grew up in a home, we had one oven. Baruch Hashem, we have 2 ovens, but I grew up in a home, there was one oven, right? And when I first got married, there was one oven. I look at an apartment, right, with a kitchen. And it wasn't even a kitchen. It was like a little, right? One oven. So, all right. You know what? At one point in our socioeconomic status, that was the norm. Everybody had one oven. And I would venture to say that most non-Jews, maybe I'm wrong about this, most non-Jews have one oven. They don't have 2 ovens. There's no reason for them to have 2 ovens. Today, yes, ein achinami, we can make our lives easier by having 2 ovens or 3 ovens, believe it or not. There are people who have 3 ovens. We can make our lives easier by having 3 ovens, and if we have the money, why not? That's the perspective of a generation today.
We can make stringency easier if we opt for it.
We can make stringency easier. No, I mean, I know that when we had one oven, so we always cooked anything milchik. We waited either 24 hours between milchiks and fleishiks, or we kashered the oven in between milchiks and fleishiks. But we always covered one, right? In other words, you could cook fleishiks uncovered in the oven, but you couldn't cook milchiks uncovered in the oven. So those were stringencies that we embraced. But you know what? If I have milchik oven and a fleishik oven, I don't have to worry about it. So maybe that's what you mean by...
When you bake a parva cake.
What?
When you bake a parva cake, it's another issue.
It's a big issue.
You don't have a parva oven?
Right? It was a big issue. Right? When you so yes, it is clearly a reflection of socioeconomic status. But the truth is, when I first got married, I could have afforded to buy milchik drinking glasses and fleishik drinking glasses. There were only 2 of us. I could have had 4 glasses. I could have handled 4 glasses, right? But it was like people didn't do that at that time, right? They didn't do it at that time. So, but for my kids, I mean, Baruch Hashem, they still eat in my house, right? Baruch Hashem, right? They still eat. That might change one day, but Baruch Hashem, for now, they still eat in my house.
So my mother grew up in a Sackler home in Hungary, and they had no oven. They had to take everything to the bakery to bake, and they had to time it, whether it was going to be something milchik or something flesh.
There were hours for milchiks, and really, wow. Right? Look how the world has changed, right? Look how the world has changed. Okay, so that's as far as glass goes, because glass, right? I don't know when was glass first used?
Somewhere in Italy.
I don't know when glass was first used. I don't
Also
know.
made of sand.
Rosie, you had a computer? When was glass first used?
Did you once tell us it was also made of sand?
Yes.
Glass is made of sand. Glass is made of sand.
But it's heated at a very, very high temperature.
Let's see. see.
Years ago, it says glass.
Yes, 4,000 years ago.
Nature, but the first glass
Really?
made by
Wow.
humans.
First glass created by humans can be dated to about 4,000 years ago. Actually, 4,000 years ago. So 4,000 years ago, maybe there should have been some glass here. I'm not sure why, right? It's interesting that it's not mentioned, right? I don't know what, I don't even know if there's a term for glass in the Chumash. I don't know if the word glass appears in the Chumash anywhere. Tanakh, I don't even know. Interesting question. Okay, so now we'll turn our attention to another complication of this list that has created tremendous division in society, and that is plastic, right?
What's the word in the Rosh Hashanah, Anu B'yad we are like clay in the hands of
Clay in the hands
potter,
of- right.
But there is a glass line, but it does not.
Kizchuchas, I think it says kizchuchas.
Does it say?
Yes, I think it says kizchuchas.
And
Yeah.
that's glass?
Zuchuchis is, right, zichuchit is glass. But I don't know if there is a,
It's probably because the word clear comes from that. That's why.
I don't know if there is it's interesting because I can't think of a term, I can't think of glass, of any word for glass in Tanakh. Rosie, can you think of anything? Any word for
No.
glass in Tanakh? It's interesting.
But that word, the root is this clarity.
Yes,
clear,
correct,
clear,
correct,
you know.
yes. Yeah. So it's interesting, I don't know, yeah. Maybe they didn't use glass at the time for eating or drinking, I don't know. Okay, we'll have to do some more research on that. But another question that comes out of this is plastic. What's the status of plastic? Why plastic? Because plastic didn't exist. Maybe glass did exist, I'm not sure, right? Maybe glass did exist. But plastic certainly didn't exist back in the times of the Chumash.
How do they make it?
Plastic
From
is
petroleum.
from petroleum oils. It's, if you think about it, you really don't want to eat. You really don't want to use it. So what about plastic? Can you kosher plastic or not kosher plastic?
You can't touch
Right.
it.
So it's very interesting, right?
It can't use a high temperature.
Okay, so it depends, right? It depends. I have plastic dishes for my grandchildren that could easily, they would melt if I put them on top of the stove, but to put them in boiling water, they'd be fine. They could be washed in the dishwasher. There's not a problem, right? They can withstand the temperature of boiling water. They can't withstand direct heat. And so can you kosher plastic?
It's
Right.
also absorbent.
Well, if it wasn't absorbent, you wouldn't need to, in other words, koshering something is only dependent on it being absorbent. That's why when it comes to glass, we don't talk about, quote, koshering glass, because according to the Shulchan Aruch, glass is not absorbent, right? But
Without a bracha, maybe, with others.
forget there's no bracha on koshering. There's no bracha that's made on koshering, right? No bracha. So it does. So
Can I go back a minute?
yes, of course.
Would you use the same Pyrex for meat and dairy, like put in the oven?
So my practice is with something hot, I don't use glass. And the reason why is because I'm afraid that there might be residue, some kind of residue still on the glass, right? And even if you wash it carefully, there might be some residue which is on the glass. I know sometimes if you look at Pyrex, there's stuff which is like, you can't get it off.
Dried up parts.
So we have separate Pyrex for milchiks and separate Pyrex for fleishiks.
What about also scratches? Could the scratch be a problem?
Scratch could be a problem. Scratch could be a problem also. 'Cause scratch,
Corningware?
Corningware is,
Outside.
yeah, but I think Corningware is more in the klicheres. Isn't Corningware more in the klicheres? I don't remember.
It is zchukit. Kihine has zchukit, biyad
Yeah.
hamazake.
Yeah, right,
Thank you.
right. I'm not, Corningware, what is Corningware? I don't remember.
I think it's
Corningware,
Pyrex.
white.
Usually it's the white stuff with a
Right,
Pyrex.
right, everybody, the white stuff with the blue, right, the white stuff with the blue, right, got it. Let's see if we get a halachic,
It's a glass type.
It is a
think
glass
it's-
pattern. definitely not pottery.
No, I think it's Pyrex.
It's a different kind
It is a glass ceramic. It's a combination of glass and ceramic.
Okay.
It's a combination of glass and ceramic, so that would be a no-no. Okay. Right? So there's a discussion about plastic in the halacha. Now we're assuming that we're talking about plastic that can withstand the heat. Anything which cannot withstand the heat of boiling water cannot be kosher in boiling water. Right? So anything that can't withstand the heat of, let's say, an oven can't be koshered in an oven either. And anything which is fragile, where a person might be afraid that it can't withstand the heat, can't be koshered, because we have no way of knowing that the person will actually leave it where it needs to be, because that person is afraid that it might become destroyed. So for instance, china, let's say you have a piece of china that became treif. So how do you kosher? China's made out of bone. Bone can be koshered. How do you kosher that piece of china?
I thought you don't.
You put it very high heat.
China can be koshered if you put it in a self-cleaning
Self-cleaning
oven. If you
But
put it in
might
a
explode.
what?
It might explode.
It might be destroyed. Right, correct. But the reason it can be koshered in a self-cleaning oven is twofold. Number one, a self-cleaning oven reaches a temperature of approximately 900 degrees, 850, 900 degrees, which is enough to kosher it, pull out whatever's inside of it. And you can't open your self-cleaning oven once it's on. So you don't have to, so the halacha is not concerned that you're not going to let it get hot enough because you can't open your oven, right? The most you can do is shut off your cycle, right? And if you shut off your cycle, it still takes time, before you can open that door. You can't just open that door. So what about plastic?
On China, but what bones? I don't know it. Whose bones? I mean,
Animal
oh, God.
bones. Animal bones.
Never thought of it.
Animal
Never thought.
bones.
So do these,
Right.
these human, animal, whatever, do they eat in China?
Does it have to be kosher animals? I mean,
It does not need to be kosher animals. No, I mean the bones are pulverized so that they're not, It's not like on your piece of bone china. Oh, there's a chicken bone. It doesn't work like that, right? Okay, so plastic, which is not mentioned in this list, plastic is very controversial. Can it be koshered or can it be koshered? So here there is a split between American poskim and Israeli poskim, or I should say there was a split between American poskim and Israeli poskim. Israeli poskim took the position that plastic can't be koshered. And the basic position is based on the fact that the only substance that can't be koshered is kli cheres. And therefore, if something does not have any kli cheres in it, something does not have any pottery, ceramic in it, then it can be koshered. It may be koshered. So Israeli poskim were of the opinion that that plastic, assuming that it's the kind of plastic that can take the heat, can indeed be koshered. We in America never koshered plastic. We never koshered plastic. Why didn't we kosher plastic? Anybody know? It's fascinating sociological insight here.
Because it's man-made.
We didn't kosher plastic because the Gadol Hador, Rav Moshe Feinstein, wrote that plastic should not be koshered for Pesach because of a stringency, because of the Chumras Pesach, because we're so stringent when it comes to Pesach, and since we're not sure about plastic, we don't kosher plastic for Pesach. Not koshering plastic for Pesach developed into, you're not allowed to kosher plastic. So in America, where Rav Moshe Feinstein was followed by so many, people never koshered plastic because they thought that Rav Moshe said you can't kosher plastic. By the way, that's not what Rav Moshe said. Rav Moshe said you can't kosher plastic for Pesach.
Because the oil might be not
But
kosher, right?
Rav Moshe said throughout the year you can kosher plastic. Where did he say that? He doesn't say that in the tshuva. He says that in another tshuva that he appended to the end of a tshuva that had nothing to do with kashrus. So most people never saw the end of that tshuva where Moshe writes that it's okay to kosher plastic for the year. And they just assume that Rav Moshe says you can't kosher for plastic for Pesach, you can't kosher plastic.
Was he following the Ramah? I mean,
No.
not the Ramah.
No, he wasn't following the Ramah, right? Rav Moshe was just saying that since we're not sure about plastic, since it's a material that didn't exist in the times of the chumash, it's not a material which is listed in our pasuk here. There's no mention of plastic because it didn't exist at that time. So is it more like metal and can be koshered, or is it more like kli cheres and can't be koshered? Right? So that was the discussion that was the debate that Rav Moshe entered into, and he came out on the side that said, when it comes to Pesach, we're more stringent with Pesach, therefore don't kosher plastic for Pesach. Which is why I grew up with my plastic countertops, because what did most people have? Formica. What is formica? Formica is plastic, basically plastic. Formica countertops, never kosherable. They were always covered. We always covered countertops for our Formica countertop. And nobody had anything other than Formica countertops, because if you did, you didn't live where I lived, right? So no, everybody had Formica countertops. And you didn't kosher them because they were plastic. They were a type of plastic. So you didn't kosher them because Rav Moshe said you didn't kosher. In Eretz Yisrael, they're koshering plastic for Pesach.
How?
Right?
They pour boiling water on.
Yep. Right? Pour boiling water over the formica, and as long as it's not scratched, as long as there's no section to it, kosher it, not a problem. All right? So that's what they were doing in Eretz Yisrael, and here in America, they weren't doing that. So what has happened over, I would say, the last 10, 15 years? People have been more and more lenient when it comes to plastic on Pesach. In fact, the OU writes, as a matter of policy, that if your family minhag is not to kosher plastic for Pesach, you should continue to observe that minhag and not kosher plastic for Pesach. But if you're not sure, or in cases of great need, one can be lenient and rely on the opinion that says you can kosher plastic for Pesach. And I myself, I've seen this, right? I've been telling people what to do. I've been telling people what to do for a very long time, for 40 years. I've been telling people what to do on Pesach. And I know that at one time, if you had a coffee maker that had plastic pieces to it, you could not use it on Pesach. So if you had a Keurig, is that how it's pronounced? If you had a Keurig coffee, I remember when Keurig first came out. Can't kosher for Pesach. And then slowly but surely what happened? Gedalia Dov Schwartz of the Chicago CRC, Chicago Rabbinical Council, said you can kosher plastic. And sure, slowly what happened is people started embracing the position of the Israeli poskim who say you can kosher plastic for Pesach. And today, if you look you pick up the OU magazine, and it'll have in there how to kosher a Keurig coffee machine. And a dishwasher. Made out of plastic. Things that we never ever did.
Just very hot water.
Not very hot. I mean, just regular hot water. Same kind of hot water you would use to kosher anything else. Yeah. That's what you use to kosher plastic, whether it's a Keurig machine, whether it's you see the change, but you see a change in Psak, a little bit based on society, which is a fascinating thing. The reason I'm mentioning these things to you is because our pasuk is the source for these questions. Since our pasuk doesn't mention glass, and since our pasuk doesn't obviously mention things which were not in existence at that time, there's a whole debate as to whether or not these things can be koshered. One other thing I want to share with you before we move on to the next pasuk, and that is, What's the first word of our pasuk, Chaf Beis? What's the first word? Ach. What is ach? Page 906, pasuk 22, Chaf Beis. The word is ach. How do they translate ach? Only. Ach in English is translated as only. What does Rashi say here? Rashi says from here we learn that if metal is rusty, you can't kosher it. And we learn as well, if metal is tarnished, you can't kosher it. So therefore, it's from here, the source, that, what do we say? We say that you have to remove any rust or any tarnish from your pots and pans and silver items before they can be koshered. Either koshered for Pesach or koshered for year-round use. Okay. That's all in this pasuk. What does the next pasuk say? The next pasuk tells us the method for koshering. Pasuk Chaf Beis tells us the materials. Pasuk Chav Gimel tells us the methods of koshering. Kol davar asher yavo va'esh, anything which is used with fire, ta'aviru ba'esh, is koshered by fire. Anything which is used by fire is koshered by fire. Now, I'm not translating the pasuk literally. The literal translation of the pasuk is everything that comes into the fire, you shall pass through the fire and it will be purified. Purified here means able to be used for food. Koshered. Doesn't mean purified from tuma. It's not tuma and taha right here. It's kosher and non-kosher. So anything that comes through the fire gets koshered through the fire. This is the principle, the famous rabbinic principle of, or maybe a biblical principle of kibbol'o, kach polto. Kibbol'o, the way in which it is absorbed, kach polto, that's the way in which it is expunged. Meaning, the way in which I use a utensil is going to determine how I kosher that utensil. So if I use a pot on top of the stove, how is that pot absorbing either non-kosher flavor or chametz stick flavor? How is that pot absorbing it? Generally, when I use a pot, the pot is to contain something that has liquid with it, right? Generally people do not use a pot to, let's say, stir fry vegetables. Although you might use a pot, you might first brown or stir fry the vegetables. Let's say you're making a soup, so some people will put oil in a pot and cook vegetables that way before they add other things. But most often, the majority of times, a pot is used with liquid. It is hot liquid, as opposed to a frying pan or a cookie sheet, right? Or something that you bake with in the oven, where generally there is no liquid, meaning that whatever it is that is being cooked is making direct contact with the item in which it's being cooked. Using a frying pan, you're putting a steak or a piece of fish or whatever it is directly on that frying pan. Now you might put down some oil or some Pam or whatever to prevent the food from sticking to the pan, but that is considered of minimal significance. It's considered direct contact between the food and the pan. So things get absorbed into the cooking utensil from the item that is cooked in that utensil. The way in which the item is cooked in that utensil determines the way in which the flavor gets absorbed into that utensil. If the item which is cooked in that utensil is cooked generally as a liquid, so then the tom gets absorbed from the liquid. The way to get the tom out is the same way in which it got absorbed. Kibbol'o, the way in which it's absorbed. Kach polto, that's the way in which it's expunged. And how is that? by filling the pot with water and boiling the water. The hot liquid will pull it out. If Tom is in a frying pan because of the direct contact between the meat and the frying pan, how do you get that Tom out of the frying pan? Only with direct heat. What does that mean, direct heat? A blowtorch. A blowtorch. Or putting it in an environment like a self-cleaning oven. That's considered direct heat.
I misunderstood the frying part. How? Why is that? Because it's water.
There's no liquid. In other words, when you cook something, so when you take whatever you're cooking out of that pot or pan, you're going to have residue left in that pot or pan. After you wash off that pot or pan from residue, you are still going to have in the walls of that pot or in the walls of that pan, you are still going to have a flavor called a tom that has been absorbed from whatever you were cooking.
And therefore you can't.
Right? So if you were cooking meatballs in a pot, even after you've cleaned out all of the meatball residue in that pot, there is nevertheless the tom of meatballs in the wall of that pot. It's not called frying. If you have a steak and you cook a steak on a frying pan, what's it called?
Sear.
I don't know. I cook a steak on a frying pan, right?
Okay.
Right? People do that, don't they?
Yeah. More on
Yes.
the grill pan.
Yeah.
Okay, or a grill pan or whatever, all right? Or I don't know. I'll cook a hamburger. Okay, I'll make a hamburger on a frying pan. Right? I'll make a hamburger on a frying pan. So there's no liquid medium there. It's the food directly against the pan. So the pan has absorbed directly from the food, not through the medium of a liquid, directly through the food. So the only way to get that taste out is through direct contact with fire. Right? So the way in which it's been absorbed, that's the way in which it is expunged or expelled from the kli, from the utensil. Sure.
What if you have a metal serving dish that needs to be kosher? It wasn't cooked on it, but hot food has gone on and hot
Okay.
food.
So once we're not talking about cooking, then the halachos are completely different. In other words, when we talk about cooking, using a utensil for cooking, the way in which it's been absorbed is the way in which it gets expunged or expelled. When we're talking not about using a vessel for cooking anymore. So for instance, I have a serving tray. I have a silver serving tray. And I put hot chicken cutlets on my silver serving tray. So how has the silver serving tray absorbed the tom of those chicken cutlets? Through direct contact. Well, right, if I would, so it would seem maybe I can only get it out by direct contact. And the answer is no. Since you're not cooking, since it's been removed from the fire, it is sufficient to kosher it with the method called hagala. Sufficient to kosher it that way. So that's what we have. We have these general two principles of koshering. One which is called hagala. Hagala is koshering using the medium of a liquid. And then we have a method of koshering called libun, from the word lavan, meaning turning white. Libun, which is koshering using direct heat. And those are basically the two methods of koshering based on this pasuk. Our pasuk says the way in which it's been absorbed, if it's been absorbed through the medium of a liquid, the tom can be expunged through the medium of a liquid. If it's been absorbed through direct contact with the food, the tom can only be expunged through direct contact with heat. That's the difference between hagala and libun when it comes to cooking. When it comes to things, to other items that have absorbed but not in the cooking process, we're lenient and we say that Hagala works to remove the tam from those things. And it makes sense if you think about it, because if I take chicken cutlet and I am cooking a chicken cutlet in a frying pan, right? There's a much greater transfer of heat between the frying pan and the chicken cutlet, because that's what cooks it. On the other hand, when I put it on the serving plate, what's going to happen? In a short while, it's going to become cooler. So there's less of a transfer of heat, and that's why Hagala works. All of these laws come from our pasuk, right? All of these laws come from our pasuk. But our pasuk ends with something interesting, and what is that? Our pasuk ends with the statement,
Clothes has to be.
V'chol asher lo yavo ba'esh ta'aviru b'mayim. And anything that's not used with fire has to be purified through water. What is that talking about?
World water?
Tevilas kalim. This is talking about tevilas kalim, the immersing of vessels in a mikvah, and that's also what Eliezer told them. What Elazar told them. Elazar told them how to kosher things that have been used with fire, things that have been used hot, and he also told them how to kosher things that have not been used for hot. Wait a second. I thought you didn't need to kosher things that haven't been used with hot, right? If I have a bowl and all I've done in that bowl is have fruit in that bowl, do I need to kosher that bowl? There's nothing to kosher from. There's been no transfer. What about if I have a bowl and I actually keep bread in a bowl? When I grew up, I had a bread drawer. Any of you have a bread drawer? I had a bread drawer when I grew up, right? That was where my mother kept all of the bread, was in this bread drawer. I have no idea why. I don't know why it was called a bread drawer. It had like some kind of ventilation, I think, or something. I don't know, right? But it was called a bread drawer. If I would keep bread in a big bowl, right? The whole year that's where I store my challah rolls, in that big bowl. And now I want to use that bowl for Pesach. Can I do it?
Of course not. It's
What's the
chametz.
bowl made out of?
Whatever the bowl's made out of, you pick the material.
It has to be kosher, if it's kosherable.
Why does it have to be koshered?
No cooking was in there, is that why?
Why does it have to be koshered?
It's chametz.
But the chametz didn't get absorbed into the walls of the bowl.
But chametz doesn't get absorbed in your glass.
I don't know what.
If you're Sephardic, you say chametz doesn't. You're saying glass never absorbs. All right. But I'm talking about Ashkenazic Jew. I have a bowl. I store my challah rolls in that bowl all year long.
Is the challah bread in a plastic bag?
No, it's right in the bowl. It's right in the bowl. I take it out of the plastic bag and I store it in the bowl. Pasnish, right? Pasnish. I hear when Sue says pasnish, right? But halachically, all I have to do is wash out that bowl. Why?
Because you never cooked in it?
Because since there was no heat and no liquid at all, there was no heat and no liquid, there was no way that the tam of the challah rolls got absorbed into my bowl.
What if it was plastic?
Doesn't matter. Plastic, metal, glass, it doesn't matter. Ceramic,
What if you had a bowl
right?
and it had oysters in it?
Hold on a second.
What if it's
What's the
hot,
problem?
fresh bread when I take my bread out of
What's the problem? I have a bowl and I have oysters in my bowl. Why would I have oysters in my bowl? I don't know. But I have oysters in my bowl. Now, wait a second. I don't know so much about oysters, but I'm assuming we're talking about clothes, right? Oysters.
Whatever, so
No, because oysters are liquidy, right? Oysters are liquidy. I need to talk about something which has no liquid with it. So let's say I had oysters in shells, right? But it was completely closed, and I kept oysters in my bowl. No problem. No problem. Because there was no way for my bowl to absorb the flavor of whatever was in it. Because remember, there's only two ways in which flavor can be transferred. One is through heat, and the other is through a liquid, kavush we call it. But without those things, there's no flavor. I could keep bread in that bowl all year long, and there's no tom in the walls of that bowl. Not a problem. Not a problem.
Wait, heat or?
So why we're washing the toys, the benchers?
Why are we washing the toys or the
books?
benchers?
Yeah, for Pesach.
Right?
Well, the tourists
We're-
walk around with,
because there might be actual chametz. See, Debbie, what you're asking a good question. Why are we washing the toys? Well, I'm sorry. Why are we washing the toys? We're washing the toys because there might be actual chametz residue on the toys. Because kids, play with toys while they're eating. They put it in their mouth. They hold it with their grungy hands, right? So there might be actual chametz, but you don't kosher your toys. I have yet to meet the Jew who koshers toys.
No.
Right? There probably are some who buy new toys for Pesach. That I hear, right? But you don't have to kosher toys because there's no transfer. But you wash them because of the chametz. Okay, we'll stop here. Next week we'll talk about Tevilas Kalim. Thank you all for coming back. Yes. Wait, Rosie, hang on just a second. Shireen.
The concept of the dishes that belong to goyim after the kosher, it does not say here that they should take it to mikveh like really.
No, we're talking about now. Now we're talking about taking it to mikvah right now.
Next pasuk or this?
The end of this pasuk is talking about taking it to mikvah.
So regardless, after you kosher.
After you, what we're going to learn is even after you kosher it, it still needs to go to mikvah.
I have a question. I was
Rosie,
in
hang
Israel in August, and
You were where?
In Israel
Uh-huh.
in August, and I was astonished to find my cousins from families who follow the Zohar rabbis, who now say you can use one dishwasher for milchiks and fleishiks, and you don't have to wait in between. You just can't
Mix them
mix it.
together.
So they have these little magnets that they put on the outside of the dishwasher that says chalavi or besari. So the various members of the family should know what they could put in the dishwasher. So,
What is that? What is that based? What is that based on?
I don't know.
So it's
This
based.
is the psak from the Zohar rabbis.
It's not just the Zohar rabbis. It's actually based on the idea that what is problematic. If anybody has to leave, I know it's late. What is problematic about a dishwasher? Because what happens in a dishwasher?
It gets very hot. So
Right?
cooking.
So the dishwasher gets very hot because very hot water. So the dishwasher becomes like a big pot in which you are cooking something. Now, what's being cooked in that dishwasher? Whatever residue was on the dishes is now being mixed with the hot water. And that's what the walls of the dishwasher are absorbing. Okay? So under those circumstances, why would it be any different than a pot? Well, a dishwasher introduces something that's not present in a pot. And what is that? Soap. Right? We say that soap is pogame the ta'am of whatever is in the dishwasher. In other words, soap effectively kills the ta'am, the flavor of whatever is in that dishwasher. So as long as I'm using soap, this is the psak that's relied on by people who use dishwasher for milchiks, and then we'll use it subsequently for fleishiks, not concurrently, but subsequently, because they're relying on this idea that says that soap is pogame the tam of whatever you're doing. Now, the fact that soap is pogame the tam is an accepted halachic principle. Right? That's an accepted halachic principle. Part of the reason why this psak is questioned by many is because if you've ever cleaned out your dishwasher, so you know that your dishwasher has a trap to it. And you would be amazed as to what is in that trap. I have found bones in that trap. I have found actual pieces of meat in that trap. So I don't understand how they allow a dishwasher to be used, right, without cleaning out the trap in between. Maybe they still rely on this pogame, I'm not sure, but that's the idea behind it. Rosie, you had a question. Everybody, see you next week.
Ach b'mei nida yitchateh. That's such a, down a left field of language. Something about tuma, mate. It says in Rashi.
Yeah.